Welcome back to the Freedom Ticket. In this module, we're going to be talking about one of the most important things that you can think about when you're starting your business, and that's selling your business. That's because when you sell your business, it's probably when you're going to make the most money, not when you're running the business. And so a lot of people, they don't think about this when they first start. It's later on when they get tired of it, or they see another opportunity or something comes along that they're like, oh, maybe I should sell my business. And initially, you're just trying to quit working for the man and start your own company and work for yourself and make a little bit of money. But if you start with the right mindset, with one day, maybe as soon as a year from now, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, I want to sell this thing because I know that's when I'm going to make the most money. You're building an asset here, and you're not just building a cash flow machine to pay your bills and pay your mortgage and take the nice trips and pay for your kids' education. You're actually building an asset. And if you start with that mindset of building an asset from day one and make decisions along the way of growing your business based around that, you're going to make so much more money, potentially millions of dollars more than you ever would have in any other way. Cash flow is important, like we talked about in the last module, and super important. And hopefully you had a chance to do Arnold's spreadsheet to help you with the cash flow. In this module, I'm going to be showing you and some of the additional sections down below, a couple of spreadsheets that'll give you an idea of what you need to do to actually reach your goal. So maybe your goal is, I want to exit my company for $3 million. That's my ultimate goal is if I had $3 million in the bank 3 years from now, I would be set. What do you need to do to achieve that goal? And so I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that will show you how to figure out, okay, if these are my basic numbers and margins, and that's my goal. How many products do I need to have? What do I need to have? You're reversing this. You're starting with the end in mind, and how do I get to that end? Not just going from the beginning and like, okay, eventually there'll be an end. You're starting with that end in mind and working backwards, and that's critical. And I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that'll give you a basic idea of what you need to be planning to do. And then also, how much money do you need to make in the meantime? Maybe you're like, I need 80 grand a year to pay my bills. So that 80 grand, what do I need to do just to meet that? I'm going to show you that in the spreadsheet too. But when you start your business, you always want to deplete thinking about the day you're going to sell it, because that's when you're going to make about 70% of all the profit is the day you sell. And you may be saying, Kevin, why would I sell my business if it's profitable? Why? That would be stupid. I want to pass this down to my kids. And that's okay. Maybe you want to create a legacy and pass this on to your kids, and they can have a job. But what if you could actually build this business to where they can do what the hell they want, and they don't have to have a job where they're just trying to make money? So maybe you're asking yourself, why would I sell my business, Kevin? I mean, if it's making me money, why the heck would I sell it? I want to build this business and pass it on to my kids, create a legacy. That's okay. You can give your kids a job if you want. But if you start with the end in mind of selling this business, that's where you're going to make the true money. It's by selling the business. If you recall back in one of the earlier episodes, I talked about my friends David and Leah Cups. They started their business and they've sold 4 of them now. So they've stair-stepped up. If they kept running their first business, it might be at $10 million now, and they might be making a couple $100,000 a year in their profit, in their pocket, and having a good life. But because they built their first business, sold it for $4 million, sold the next one for $7 million, sold the next one for 11, 12, and then 15, and so on, they've built generational wealth for themselves that they couldn't have done if they just kept running the business in a linear fashion. And so that's why you want to start to think about selling the business from day one. So everything you need to be doing needs to be for growth. So what can I do? What's the minimum I can take out to keep this thing snowballing so I can sell it for maximum value? You need to allocate time for actually planning your exit. So it needs to be part of your weekly schedule. Like what have I done this week? Whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, what have I done this week that's contributing to my future exit? And by doing that, you're just going to make your chances of changing your life and your family's life so much more. There's a lot of things too with taxes when it comes to selling a business. There's lower taxes in some states and some areas on capital gains. There's certain rules that if you do things right when you first set up the business, within the first 30 days, literally within the first 30 days, if it's day 31, you missed the opportunity. But within the first 30 days, you do certain things with the IRS. Your first $10 million of capital gains when you exit is tax-free. Tax-free. If you don't do that, you might be paying, depending on where you live in California, you might be paying $5 million of that $10 million in taxes. It's crazy how much money you'd be leaving on the table. So you got to think about this from day one. It doesn't matter where you live. If you live in the US, you have an advantage. It's easier to sell. But whether you live in Europe or wherever it may be, you may sell it to a big private equity company. You may sell it to an aggregator. You may sell it to a strategic investor. You may sell it to somebody on Flippa.com, for a few $100,000. Whatever it is, if you prepare from day one, it's going to make a huge difference. Now, when you sell your company, sometimes they'll give you the money up front. So let's say you sell the company. It's usually what's called a multiple. So it's based on your SDE. So it's based on your discretionary income, basically, your SDE, seller's discretionary income. And so that's based on like your profit margin plus what's called add backs. And add backs could be things like your salary, could be things like if you went to a conference, things that another owner might not be going to spend. So those get added back, and that creates your bottom line kind of profit, or SDE. And then there's usually a multiple of that, and it can vary from 1 to as much as 5 or 10x that multiple. And that's usually how businesses are evaluated. So for example, if you're selling $1 million worth of product on Amazon at gross volume, gross sales, and let's say you have SDE of, you're doing the numbers right, and you got about 20% bottom line profit, like I was saying, so roughly 200,000. And let's just say that's your SDE. Someone might come in and buy that business right now in today's market for anywhere from $400,000 to $800,000, depending on a number of factors. Well, that's cash in your pocket. Instead of you having to wait 4 years to make $200,000 a year and probably have to reinvest some of that, all of a sudden you got this big hit of cash in your pocket. You can take that, pay off some bills, take a nice vacation, save some away, and then now you got $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever to start your next round and do this again and step and repeat. And you can do really, really well by doing that. And so that's something you got to keep in mind, is where do I need to be, and what I need to be on my ratios and my growth patterns to actually do this. And you always want to sell when you're on an upward spiral. You never want to sell when you're flatlined or you're down. So most buyers want to see that there's growth potential. They want to see, what can we do? What opportunities are there if we come in here and throw some money on this, throw some gas on this fire? What can we do to explode this? So they always want to see that. And a lot of times we're really good, us, me and you and other people like us are good at starting something. But once it gets to $5 million or $10 million in sales, which is not super hard to do on Amazon, to be honest, it's another animal. You start dealing with structures and corporations and layers of management and all these processes and systems. And we're entrepreneurs. We're like down in the dirt digging and getting our fingers, dirt under our fingernails. And that's what we like to do. We don't like to be messing with all this other stuff. So sometimes we're really good at getting it to a certain level, and it takes a different type of management or a different type of person to take it to the next level. And so that's when it's best, to sell it. Growth, like I said, it's essential for when you're going to sell. So you always want to sell when you're on the upswing. You always want to, from day one, create a document vault, because when you go to sell, the buyers are going to want like every little piece of paper, every agreement you made with everybody, every little piece of paper that you did. So you're going to want to create this document vault where you're saving like everything. And you can set this up from the beginning, so it's like a special file cabinet online, special Google storage, where you're keeping all these special documents, every little trademark document, every little agreement you made with an independent supplier, who has the rights to the photos. Because if you don't do this from day one, when you go to sell, you're going to be spending a month or 2 months of your time just scrambling around trying to figure this stuff out and find it. Because a good buyer is going to want to see all that to cover their ass. Diversification and your size does matter when you go to sell. So the smaller you are, the less the multiple usually. The bigger you are, the higher the multiple that you're going to get for when you sell. You could sell your business at any level. Even if you get it to only $50,000 a year, you could sell that on sites like Flippa or something. There's brokerage companies like Quiet Light Brokerage is one of the better ones that's out there that can help you sell your businesses when it comes to that time and put you in front of potential buyers, and they help you organize everything and make the documents to actually present to the buyers and help in the negotiations and all that stuff. But diversification, some people say, well, should I just be all on Amazon, or should I be selling on Walmart and TikTok Shop and other places? Is that going to make a difference? Yes and no. So some buyers, it makes a big difference. They love to see diversification, not all your eggs in one basket. Others don't care. All they want, that's your Amazon business. And they really don't care about your business or your company. They just want to buy your assets. All they care about your ASINs and your products. They're just going to buy those, and they don't care about the company name. You keep that. We don't care about King Industries. We just want your dog bowls, and they'll just buy assets out of it. So those kinds of things can happen as well. When you're looking to sell long term, you want to make sure you're basically using accrual accounting methods. Everything's going to be evaluated by accrual accounting, and you want to make sure that you're doing monthly forecasting. That's going to help you when a buyer comes in. It's going to help you, one, reach your targets, and second, it's when a buyer comes in, they can see that, okay, this is where it's going. And so if we come in, at least he's already got a plan, or she's already got a plan for this. And we know if we do this, this, and this, and with our resources and our connections, we can blow this thing up. It's going to make it much more attractive. You have maybe multiple people bidding on your product. You want to also make sure that everything is clean when it comes to your legal documents, when it comes to your bank accounts. You have separate bank accounts. You're not commingling funds. If you have multiple brands, try to keep those in separate bank accounts. Each one has its own unique bank account. You could have a master clearing account, but then you have separate bank accounts where all the transactions and expenses are going out of. Make sure, in some cases, you may even want to set up legal entities that are separate. Have a holding company, that's your main company, King Industries, and then under that is Pets, King Pets, and King Sports, and King Supplements, or whatever. Each one is separate with separate bank accounts and separate audit trails and separate everything. Separate seller accounts. You don't have to do that, but it just makes it cleaner. You could have everything in one Seller Central account on Amazon, but if you have them in separate accounts, then that can keep it cleaner, and it makes it easier to sell and to audit as well. You always want to understand your buyer's perspective. Why are they buying this business? What are they planning on doing with it? Businesses that, and you got to know when is the right time to sell. And sometimes you're like, is this the right time? Should I wait 2 years from now? You'll have a gut feeling when the right time to sell is. And sometimes the right time to sell is when things are really good, but they're not great yet. It's like right before that cusp, before it blows up, and especially if you can actually retain some equity. So a lot of times when you sell, if you sell, back in this case of if you're doing $1 million a year in gross sales, $200,000 SDE or profit, and let's say someone's going to come in and give you $500,000 for that. They're probably not going to give you the whole $500,000 up front. They're going to give you a portion of that, maybe 70, 80% of that, and typically. So you might get, let's say, $400,000 of that. And then the other $100,000 is going to be what's called an earnout. And a lot of times they'll want you to stay around for a few months or maybe 6 months and just help them with the transition. And then if everything goes well and you meet certain targets a year from now or 2 years from now, then you get the rest of that $100,000. In some cases, you can negotiate that you get even more. In some cases, you can even retain equity. You know, the guys that started Helium 10, when they sold this company, they started in 2016. I knew the guys back then. They sold it in 2019 and had a big exit for a lot of money, and then they retained some equity. And when the company got sold again a few years later, they made even more money. So you can do things like that if you're smart in negotiation. You can just create money almost out of thin air if you do this right. You're creating an asset, and assets are worth something when they're sold. So one of the things that you always keep reviewing and adjusting your goals based on what your target is. Where are you trying to hit, and what can we do to achieve that target? Where can we cut costs? Where can we pull growth levers to actually make this happen? There's companies out there, and you're going to see in one of the other modules here from Scott Dietz, where he's an excellent, one of the best in the business, the Northbound Group, that will show you how to do these spreadsheets and plan to hit these targets to get all your ducks in a row. And in fact, there's even here within Helium 10 in the training, there's something called the exit ticket that Scott and his team put together that goes way more into detail of what I'm talking about. Here, I'm just giving you the general overview, the Cliff Notes version. They go into the minute detail of how to actually prepare to exit and what the process is like and what you need. So take a look at the exit ticket here in Freedom Ticket as well. And that's going to give you some really good information. Some of the things you need to understand when it comes to exit are understanding valuations. How do people value your business? It's typically earnings-based. It's a multiplier based on your earnings. And then they add for your inventory. So if in this case of the $1 million with $200,000 SDE that I've been using as an example, they'll give you the $500,000 if it's a 2.5 multiplier. 2.5 times 200,000 is 500. And then let's say you have $100,000 worth of inventory sitting in Amazon. They'll cut you a separate check for the $100,000 worth of inventory. And so that'll be on top of that. assuming the inventory has been paid for. Also, the value ranges can vary greatly by the business size, by the channel you're selling in. Amazon businesses might be worth more than a Walmart business, or the percentage that you have. If you have your own customer list or your own distribution channels, or you have wholesale, those kinds of things can make a difference. There's basically 4 pillars when it comes to building and selling your business. There's the risk. What is the risk to the buyer? What kind of risk are they doing? If they give you $500,000, what's the risk factor? They're going to look at what's the growth potential. What can I do to put gas on this fire to grow it? Can I expand this because I got deep pockets into Europe or Japan, or can I know connections where I can get in to different places, or we put this into our distribution network or direct to consumer, we can crush it. How easily is everything transferable? How much legal mumbo jumbo we got to go through? How good are the documents? How tight is all the agreements? So is it transferable in a smooth manner? And what's the documentation? That document vault. What do we have? Every T crossed and every I dotted to make sure that if something goes wrong and it doesn't put my investment at risk as a buyer. So those are some of the things that they look at. There's also things called the ignorance discount. And those are things like doing proper add backs, where you may have that $200,000, but let's say you were overpaying yourself. You were paying yourself $200,000 a year as a salary, and the new buyer's like, well, we could hire someone to do this for $80,000 a year. So they're going to add back $120,000, and so you're now at $320,000 on the valuation. 2.5 times $320,000 is a little bit more than $500,000. That's more like $750,000 or something. So it's a big difference. So knowing how to add those things, or the one-time expenses and things back that the other new buyer doesn't have to incur, are big deals in valuation. So if you try to sell the business yourself and don't know all this stuff, or haven't gone through the exit ticket here in Freedom Ticket, you may be leaving some money on the table. Or it's best in a lot of cases to deal with a third party that takes a small cut of the action, and they handle all this stuff for you, and they got the experience that you don't have. Also, remember your capital gains taxes. There's going to be taxes when you sell. Those constantly changing in the United States. If you live in Europe or somewhere else, might be different rules, but there's capital gains taxes. Experts are, I highly recommend, Northbound or Quiet Light or someone like that to help you, guide you through the process, even though they take a little bit of a fee. And I recommend, like I said, the Exitpreneur's Playbook, which is a book that's written by one of the guys at Quiet Light. It's a really good book. You can find it on Amazon. And take a look at the guidance here in Helium 10 for the exit ticket with Scott Dietz and his team. So this is something I just want to go over with you really quick, the importance of actually thinking about the end game at the beginning, and not figure it out halfway through like, oh crud, I need to sell this thing. So we make a big difference in everything for you. Hope this has been helpful. We'll talk to you again shortly. And enjoy Scott's module and the other financial modules that we have here as well. Make sure you do those before you move on to section 5.